Someone left a comment on my video called "It doesn't matter how you raise them, it has nothing to do with the owner," and wrote, "Here is something to bring up at your next town or state meeting. I just watched the first segment of this documentary about shocking emergency calls on YouTube. Remember when this lady in Connecticut got attacked and mauled by a pet chimpanzee named Travis? Well, guess what? The victim went in front of the local lawmakers and demanded change of owning chimps in private hands. The law was changed that day in the U.S. state of Connecticut and bans chimps as pets. One attack, one mauling, and this lady didn't even die. So someone explain to me how we are still having this discussion about these known killers on four legs, also known as dogs, having free rein in our communities to maul and murder every single day. It's absolutely infuriating. Here's the link to the YouTube video. I will share the link with you in the description. Someone answered this question. My husband said right off the bat, he's like, it's all about money. The pet industry is a $70 billion per year industry. This is a huge industry. I mean, pharmaceutical companies that make veterinary medicines, they don't want to miss out on all the money they're making selling, drugs for dogs. Veterinarians don't want to lose money. All of the freaking corporations, the pet food industry, the pet toys, the pet products, all of these flea and tick medications and obedience schools, groomers, leashes, collars, shock collars, anti-barking devices. It just goes on and on and on. Huge amounts of money are being made by corporations, by people who have a vested interest in having you believe that you need a dog to be a good person, to be a complete family. And so this idea is being shoved down our throats constantly in magazines, books, movies, commercials. It's outrageous. It's a travesty. It is insane. People believe dogs are harmless if they are raised correctly, while chimpanzees are known to become unruly once they reach sexual maturity. But dogs have proven themselves to be unpredictable. Most dog attacks involve dogs that were raised in loving homes and were well trained. Even if it were true that it's all in how you raise them, which it isn't, dogs still need to be banned because there's no way to regulate how people raise their dogs. It took one mauling by a chimpanzee for us to ban chimpanzee ownership, while over 300,000 people are going to the emergency room every year in the United States with injuries inflicted by dogs. Almost 800,000 people require medical care each year due to dog bites. When are we going to say enough is enough? In 2015, more than 28,000 reconstructive surgery procedures were performed because of dog bites in the United States. That number is for sure higher today. Dogs are killing 20 to 50 people every year in the United States. It took one mauling by a chimpanzee for us to ban chimpanzee ownership. What is going on here? Dog worshippers will say, dogs are different. They're domesticated. Even though dogs have been domesticated for thousands of years, dog experts will tell you they retain the instincts of their wild ancestors and they remain hunters at heart. So when they are triggered by a high-pitched noise or a sudden movement, that primitive part of their brains will, trigger them into attacking. Because the person looks and sounds like prey to them. There's nothing you can do about this. It can happen in an instant, and you cannot train this out of a dog. You cannot train a predator to not be a predator. People are fooling themselves by humanizing dogs. People think dogs cannot inflict the sorts of injuries chimpanzees inflict. They can, and they do regularly. They decapitate people. They rip people's throats out. They rip people's limbs off and eat them. Dogs rip people's genitals off and eat them. They disembowel people. I mean, the damage dogs do is no different to the damage any other predator, such as a wolf or a lion or a bear or a chimpanzee, does. And dog freaks say, well, human beings kill more than that every year, so what are you going to do, ban humans? No, Einstein, because we are a social species and we need one another to survive. Or more people die in car accidents every year, are you going to ban cars? No, we're not going to do that because we would die if we would ban vehicles that transport our food and so forth. Like, what is wrong with you? Yeah, so humans kill more than chimpanzees do. Is that an excuse to keep chimpanzees in our communities? Are you mental? We need humans. We need cars to survive. We do not need chimpanzees in our communities. And we do not need dogs in our communities. There's nothing we can do about bee stings and cataclysmic storms. We can't ban bees or storms, but it is very easy to ban chimpanzees. And it is just as easy to ban dogs. And we should be trying everything we can to minimize risk, if not eliminate it. And in this case, it is so easy to completely eliminate risk by banning dog ownership. It has nothing to do with how the dog is raised. And look at these numbers. The number of dog bites and serious injuries due to dog attacks is unacceptable. Why did just one mauling of a chimpanzee lead to the banning of chimpanzees as pets when we have thousands, 28,000 reconstructive surgeries performed every year due to dog attacks in the United States alone? And they are still being touted as wonderful companions and family members, and you're a shitty person if you don't want to own one of these things. What is going on? Dogs are not safe to have in our communities. They are unpredictable. It is true that not all dogs attack, but you never know which ones will. I have explained this in my videos. And in my videos, I don't just share my opinions. I share expert opinions. I share statistics and science. I've talked about predatory drift. Dogs are predators. They might be, and they usually are, the best dogs for many years, 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, well-trained, raised in loving homes, until one day they rip someone's face off in an unprovoked attack and no one ever sees it coming. And it's like, oh, how did that happen? I'll tell you how it happens, and I have told you how it happens. It's because the dog is a predator. And it doesn't matter how you raise them. You are playing Russian roulette with the lives of everyone in your community by owning one of these beasts. These remorseless, fanged, bloodthirsty beasts that are not family members. They are nothing like children. It is mass brainwashing, and it is frightening, and it is so infuriating. And I just had to make this video because we have had enough. It's time to wake up. 28,000 reconstructive surgeries are performed every year in the United States due to dog attacks. How many of these surgeries are on the same person for the same injuries? I'm not sure, but at least one person every day, probably many more, are becoming disfigured by dogs. Most of these dogs that attack were not mistreated, they were not abused, they were not provoked. They were raised in loving homes by people who thought they knew what they were doing, by people who thought they had trained their dogs well. It is very clear that this is a major public safety issue, not to mention a public health issue because of all the untreated waste that is being deposited on our city streets and that is flowing into our waterways. I just don't understand why people have not woken up already. Why are my videos not being more widely shared? Why is it taking so long for people to come to their senses? Who has the courage to bring this up at their next town or state meeting? The very least you could do is share this video on social media. Get people thinking. Speak out. Question. Encourage others to question. Let's talk about this. Future generations will look back in amazement, and they will not believe that we tolerated the presence of these pea-brained, instinct-driven, remorseless, fanged, bloodthirsty, predators, even as they disfigured people every single day. I mean, this is insane. The future is dog free.